I have met Sally-Ann actually last year, and we had a brief telephone interview. And Sally-Ann is one of those personalities within the corporate world who can combine the startup space and education. Startup and business space and education, which is very rare to find. And many times there's quite a disconnect, quite a gap between the two. And that's what today will be about. Today will be about how we can bridge this gap, what is the future of work, how we can equip our children, the next generation, with the best tools to move forward. So welcome again. We are very pleased, and I hope you like Coffs Harbour so far.
It's great. I haven't been back here since I was younger, actually, and I do love always coming and revisiting somewhere that you have fond memories of as a child, and actually seeing the change and the growth, and actually just connecting with people tonight and hearing a couple of people's stories about what they've been doing here just gets me so excited and enthusiastic, because one of the things that I think we want to address tonight, and I'm jumping the gun straight away, but you gave me a microphone, so that's what's going to happen, is that, you know, there's this myth that you have to be in Sydney, or you have to be in a capital city, or you have to be in Silicon Valley or Israel or wherever it is to innovate. And the reality is good ideas can come from absolutely anywhere. And so to hear that people here are starting businesses, and Eve was just telling me her story. By the way, you need to get her up here. She was looking for a job until somebody told her, why don't you just start a company and do what you used to do in the UK? And so she did, right? A week later, she's got clients and got an ABN and got a job and, you know, got a website up and running. So to hear people's stories about starting businesses wherever they are to solve problems and solve needs always makes me super excited, because there should be absolutely no barriers in this day and age to anybody being able to do that.
So going back to the beginning, by the way, we have 20 minutes for this talk, and after this talk, you all have the opportunity to ask questions. So think about your question now, because we will ask you questions to ask Sally a question. So going back to the beginning, where is Sally coming from, and how did it all begin?
Yep, so I grew up in Madruba. So does anybody know Madruba? Yes, you are my people. So I grew up in Madruba when it was really small. Robina was not a thing. The Gold Coast was not as big as what it was. So I'm giving away my age a little bit here. I'm the youngest of three by a really long stretch. So my brother and sister are 11 and 13 years older than me. But apparently not a surprise. Not too sure, but that's okay, we'll roll with it. My parents owned a fruit and veggie shop, so I don't have this memory, but I'm told that, you know, a few weeks after I was born, I was in a bassinet or in the carrier behind the till with mum. So I grew up in that environment with my parents working very, very hard. My dad worked 7 days a week for most of my life, or for most of my school life. Nobody in my family finished high school. I went to the local state school. Very, very grateful for that, because if it wasn't for my education, I wouldn't be where I am today. But I was the first in my family to finish high school, first in my family to go to university, first in my family to do a research degree. There's a lot of firsts in my life, and I think I got there for two main reasons. One is because even if they didn't know where to point me or how to advise me, I got some less than optimal advice, which we can dig into in a bit. I was always told, you can do, you're smart, and at the end of the day, you can do anything that you put your mind and your effort to. So there was always this notion in my family of hard work overcomes a myriad of obstacles. If you just apply yourself, if you persevere, if you push through, if you really want that, you're going to have to work for it. And so that was something that was instilled in me from as young as I can remember, and I'm very, very grateful for that. And I think the other thing was, I was taught not to really fear, because my parents, there's a lot of things they didn't know in life. You know, they weren't able to help me with advanced calculus or any of my maths or physics or chemistry homework, but they were always very enthusiastic and encouraging, going, let's find a way for you. And so, you know, being taught to be resourceful and figure things out for myself, I think was a really great value that I'm very, very appreciative from my family.
I think quite a lot of people can resonate, and I can look at Adrian and, you know, owning a large business, Midcoast Trucks, one of our sponsors. I think there's quite a lot of similarities to, you know, having a background and thrive for it. So going forward, when you went through the university, or when you went after school through the university, what motivated you to go through university, and what was the next step afterwards?
Yeah, so for me it was a little bit unusual. So when I went to school in Queensland, I started primary school at that age where you could still slip in fairly young, and my birthday is at the end of the year. So when I was graduating from high school, I was 16 turning 17, which was just a little bit young for university. Never mind, went there anyway. But the advice I kind of got, I did all of the STEM subjects at school. So I did maths, I did advanced maths, I did physics, I did chemistry, I did English, and I did Japanese. And the advice that I got when I went to talk to people, because there weren't many professionals around me, especially not in the field that I'm in now, in the research area of Google and in computer science, but the only professionals I ever saw were doctors and dentists, and I never got sick, and nobody really likes going to the dentist. Sorry to any dentists in the room, but it's pretty scary when you're a kid. That was all I saw. So the advice I had was, do Japanese and you'll always have a job growing up on the Gold Coast. I was like, all right, sure, that seems like a great idea. And so I enrolled in an international relations degree with Japanese at Griffith University and did that and finished that and came out of that at 19 and had no idea what to do. But found a flyer, as you do at university, that says, we will pay for you to come to Japan and work as a professional golf caddy and a translator. And I was like, sweet, that sounds fantastic. So I applied for it and got on a plane with no money and went to Japan for a gap year. Absolutely no idea what I wanted to do, and ended up working over there for 12 to 18 months in golf resorts as a translator, in education, and a whole bunch of different things that I just picked up. Again, that hard work ethic thing came through. It was like, I've got to put a roof over my head. I've got to pay rent. I want to go out and do things, and I want to travel. So if I want that, I've got to work for it. So I did whatever I needed to do and hustled and worked in cafes and bars and all the crazy things that you do to get as much money as I could to live the life that I wanted to live. Came back from that and wasn't sure what to do, and ran into one of my professors at the pub who said, I always thought you would stay and go on and do a research degree and, go and consider academia. And I looked at them and was like, really? Me? And I thought, okay, sure, that sounds great. Let's have a chat. And so I ended up signing up to do a master's via research with the view that I was probably going to head into doing a PhD. And it wasn't until I had a very good friend who took me shopping for a computer and made me build my first computer that I kind of realised that there was a whole bigger world out there to what I was just studying, and kind of fell in love with this idea of maybe doing something different. So that was what I did. Worked at a bunch of places and ended up at Google. Is that too quick?
Okay. Going to Google.
Yeah.
Employee number 68.
In Sydney.
In Sydney. I believe there is now 1,400 in Sydney. Mm-hmm. I understand there is 2 different divisions. How it all started in Sydney? There was a kind of a startup story, wasn't it?
Yeah, so there's a really great tradition in Google. Like, our roots as a company, we're a tech company, we're a software engineering company. We started in a dorm room at Stanford, right? That's where our founders started, with this idea of solving search. And if any of you can remember back to what search was like pre-Google, the first time you used Google was probably a magical experience, right? It just surprised you and it delighted you, and things worked. And this is in the day of dial-up speeds, so it was really quite transformative. And so, in our DNA, we've always been a startup culture and a startup company. And for us in Google Australia, we had a sales division that had already started with Kate Vale, who was the first employee in Australia, selling AdWords from her lounge room. But the engineering presence actually wasn't in existence for a few more years. And we actually started in Google Australia because we had 4 guys working in a little company called Where To Technologies, and they were running out of money and runway in their startup, and they went to Silicon Valley to raise money or to look for an exit, or for what was next and for how they were going to keep going. And their whole mission was to help transform, to use the internet to actually visualize maps in a whole new way. So they saw great potential, not just for putting that information online and making it accessible, but actually for a long-term future about how you can completely change the way people interact with mapping and geospatial data. And our founders loved them. they acquired them, and part of that acquisition, they negotiated to stay in Australia, and they were actually the start of our engineering presence in Sydney. So when I joined a few years later, there was 11. They'd grown from 4 to 11 very slowly, and we now are about 700, 800 odd strong in engineering in the company in Sydney, working on a whole bunch of different global products and services, which is really cool.
And entrepreneurs can be quite an interesting breed, because I would say that some entrepreneurs, they are not really employable. How do you treat those people within Google? Because you're looking for those creative and those icebreakers and people who are willing to explore the new horizons.
So there's a couple of things to unpack there. When I think about entrepreneurs and creative people, if I just think about people who create things, right? Really, when you're talking about entrepreneurship, you're talking about people who are building businesses out of nothing. They're solving problems, really, for somebody, because you don't have a business if you're not solving a problem for somebody. Right? That's essentially all a business or a product is. It's solving a problem for somebody. So when I think about those kinds of people who are really entrepreneurial, be it starting their own business or working inside of a company, or as a social entrepreneur or in government or in other places, they're really just problem solvers at core. And for me, when I unpack what is a problem solver, they're kind of two things. They're people that are very, very curious. So I was very annoying as a child. I'm probably still very annoying now, because I will ask why until I understand it. And my mum used to say to me, you never do anything until you totally understand the why and all of the rules. So if it asked me to play a game with you, I will not play that long 5-hour board game until I know every single rule in and out and all of my whys have been answered, because that's just how my brain works. I like to understand how things work. I'm very, very curious. But I think the other thing is with these people, and the kind of people that we employ and the kind of people we see coming through and thriving in the startup ecosystem and thriving in business are people that have a passion and a love for lifelong learning. Because the reality is, if you're solving problems, by definition, you don't actually know how to do that, because otherwise it wouldn't be a problem, right? It's a problem because it's hard, and it's a problem because you don't know the answer. And so you have to have something in your DNA and something in who you are that goes, I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to go acquire that knowledge. And I'm either going to acquire that knowledge through searching for it, through researching it, through going and finding an expert, through finding somebody else, and I'm going to connect with a knowledge expert, or I'm going to connect with that knowledge in somehow and reconfigure that and repurpose that for a solution to a problem. That's really all entrepreneurship is. We kind of make it this very complicated thing. It's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of hard work to build a business. There's a lot of hard work inside a company like Google, but it's really just problem solving again and again and again. And so you have to build an environment that kind of encourages and thrives that. We were talking a little bit earlier about this. One of the things that's really phenomenal is to see an organisation of engineers go from sort of 10 or 11 to that 600 or 700. And what happens when you get to 600 or 700 is you have such a diversity of things that you're working on, products and services and a whole bunch of problems. There's lots of very, very complex problems. And what I love about that is, right, what we really encourage people to do and how we encourage them to thrive inside of the organisation is that every 2 to 3 years, most people change projects that they're working on. They change the problem that they're working on because they've acquired enough knowledge, they've acquired the expertise, they've acquired the skill, and they've grown in it and they're thriving. And then they're like, okay, I can do this with my eyes closed. I can do this really easily. And they want to go on. They have this growth mindset of, I want to go and learn something new. I want to do something bigger. I want to do something more. And so, having that opportunity to move them and to say, well, come and do this big, hard problem. And they're like, oh, I don't know how to do that. And we're like, exactly, come and do this really big, hard problem. I think that's something that's kind of in the DNA of our employees. And when I look at the startups that I work with in places like Fishburners in Sydney and through Startup Grind and through Startup Weekend and all of the things that we're involved with, I see that again and again. They're people that are really hungry to solve a problem, and then once they've solved it, they're like, what's the next one? What's the next one? What's the next one?
So going with the problem.
Yes.
If you had an opportunity to solve a problem, let's say problem in education, and you're looking at, how can education inspire the kids of today to prepare the best way forward? What would be the key ingredients. What would you give to our school teachers and educators today to foster within kids, foster within schools? What are the key ingredients you would recommend?
Great question, because it's a really big, gnarly problem, right? And I love big, gnarly problems because they don't have simplistic, easy answers, or we'd already be doing it. I think there's a couple of things, though, and I think some of that is stuff that I actually see working on, and there's quite a few people in this room, and Leanne is one of them. She's the reason that I'm up here. I think one of them is teacher professional development. Teachers are phenomenal and foundational to actually success in this country and in every country. And we need to invest more in their ongoing professional development because they are professionals. We need to respect them and we need to invest in them. And I say that personally, but I say that as a lot of the programs that we run are collaborations with universities and schools and not-for-profits investing in ongoing teacher professional development, for us particularly in the digital technologies curriculum. But I also say that with another lens. So I've had the privilege of working alongside of our chief scientist in Australia for the COAG STEM Partnership Forum, which is advising all of the education ministers in Australia. And one of the recommendations that we came forward was around this idea that we need to invest as a nation in our teachers, and we need to find a way to be able to reach them wherever they are in any part of the country to invest in their ongoing professional development. And I think that's fundamental, because I would not be where I am if it wasn't for the teachers that I had. 100% would not be where I am if I didn't have people invest in me and make me curious. I think there's a second thing that's really phenomenal that we can do. And again, oh my gosh, this was happening in Coffs today. So this is the perfect place for me to be, is giving students both inspiration and opportunity to experiment and fail and collaborate. So how many people were at the first robotics event today? Anybody? Okay, I have homework for everybody in this room, and the good thing is I'm gonna give Tony the links for this later, so we're gonna send this out to you all so you can get details on how to follow up on this. There's a phenomenal program in Australia called First Robotics, firstaustralia.org. And they go from kindergarten through to year 12. And what they do is they have kids coming together as a team to solve problems and challenges with robotics. But it's not just about robotics, right? It's actually about teamwork. It's about collaboration. It's about failing, because nothing works the first time. It actually doesn't always work the 5th time or the 10th time, but they're having such an amazing time to doing it that they build up this resilience and this ability to problem solve. There's actually a long-term study out of the US over 25 years of following kids through this program of how much it improves their problem-solving skills. And it's something like 96% of kids who go through the program identify as problem solvers. They self-identify and say, I am a problem solver, and even if I don't know what the problem is, I know how to actually get in there and figure it out. And for me, it's programs like this that combine disciplinary skills, so they combine actual technical skills and real-world skills that can be applied not just at university, but in the trades and in other sectors as well. They combine that, but they also combine design thinking. They combine communication and collaboration. And so you're actually creating an opportunity for people to develop their personal skills, the things that we call soft skills that are really not soft. They're hard, the leadership, the communication and the collaboration. You get them developing those skills and an entrepreneurial mindset, a problem-solving mindset. If we can have more programs like that in our schools, I think that would be a phenomenal opportunity, because the types of kids that come through that program, I've just watched kids over the years in Australia, particularly in rural areas, completely transform their life in participating in programs like that. So more of things like that. I could go on about all of the other things. If I have unlimited time and money, there's lots of things, but those are the two big keys for me.
We have quite a lot of business owners here, and I believe that the connection between school, education, or university and businesses is fundamental. And I think we need to find out how we can engage the two more. And great example, one of them was the STEM Enrichment Academy about 2 weeks ago. Leanne Cameron again organized it. She's amazing. Where are you, Leanne? Hands up. There she is. And to see kids from primary school talking to builders about, designing bus shelters, and having the builders providing feedback to the kids, and the kids learn how to provide structural integrity to those bus shelters, was incredible. But the engagement between the two, that speak volume. So how important is business to engage in this?
It's absolutely critical. And I think that, again, through the COAG STEM Partnership Forum, there was a report that we put out that really highlighted and showcased what a difference this can make. And it's a huge difference when you get that collaboration, particularly with local businesses, because they're relevant for students in the area. If you can get that business, government, schools collaboration right, you actually provide opportunity not just for students, but also for businesses to grow, to thrive and flourish, right? This isn't just their future pipeline, but it's also for them to actually, change the way they're thinking and increase the capacity that they have. There's a phenomenal program that's been running in the Hunter region that Scott Sleep has started with Regional Development Australia, and they work really, really closely with a ton of local businesses and industries there, the schools, the vet sector, and the university. And they've actually taken the number of students who were studying maths and the higher level maths and engineering from under the state average to well above it. And when you look at the number of girls, they've done exactly the same thing. So if you can get this mix right, you actually have the opportunity to change outcomes. And for me, it's not just about changing outcomes in what people are studying, but it's actually providing the inspiration. There is so much hidden talent in your community, and we have to find ways to tell those stories. I was saying earlier, I shouldn't be the one sitting up here. I'm not in your community. I've got an amazing, I've had an amazing journey, and I'm incredibly proud of it. But man, you've got some talent in this community. And I don't know whether they have a platform, well, they do now with Startup Grind, but they need a platform to be able to connect and share those stories to inspire not just students, but also parents and also other people that are transitioning through careers, right? We all have to transition through careers and through opportunities in our life. I think I'm on my 6th career or something now, and they've all been very, very different. But if we can get people to see problems as opportunities and engage with it with that different mindset, that's when we actually turn things around at a community level. And for me, that's what it's fundamentally what all of this is about. It's not about products and services. It's not about any of that. It's like, how do we connect the dots between what's already happening in our local ecosystems and in our national ecosystem, and empower people to actually drive change and make collective change together, because that's what's critical.
I find it interesting. I think 2 days ago there was a post on Twitter about changing the way how prime ministers pitch how they're going to rule the country for the next 12 months, and it being a problem-based. I don't want to make it political, but it would be interesting to see, how schools can approach to certain problems that are in the community. And talking about problem solving again and how we can equip the kids with the right skills. Are there certain examples you can share with us from other parts? I think you mentioned Newcastle, but also maybe overseas you can think of?
I think there's lots of different examples out there, and I probably don't want to highlight a bunch of programs that you import. I think where I see things working really, really well is when you take mechanisms like a hackathon or like Startup Weekend, and you connect the local community. I would actually say local council has a phenomenal opportunity in this space to connect the dots with local council, local business, and the local problems, and give students opportunities. That's where it gets interesting. So a couple of examples I can think of. Startup Weekend, the first Startup Weekend for youth ran in the Sunshine Coast a couple of years ago. And what I loved about that, so Startup Weekend, for those of you who don't know, it's a 72-hour hackathon. It starts on Friday night. They take you through a lean canvas model, which is just a way of thinking about the problem and the opportunity and kind of assessing a business opportunity. But you pitch your idea at the beginning, teams storm and norm and form and do all those great things that teams do, and they work really, really hard over the weekend. And on Sunday night, they pitch their business idea. It's rough. It's often not real, sometimes real, but it's really phenomenal to see people come together and understand how easy it could be to actually start a business. And so they ran one for young people, for teenagers. And what I really loved about it was people actually that were mentors from the local business community and, you know, from the council came in at the beginning and talked about the problems that they saw in the community, to sort of seed some ideas for people to work on. And it was a really phenomenal result. And some of the kids are still running their businesses. There's lots and lots of programs like that. But for me, it's not just about the kids and giving kids an entrepreneurial mindset. It's actually about doing this at the other level too. So it's actually about thinking for people that have are in their 20s or in their 30s, or maybe even in their 40s and their 50s. You know, we do have to work longer in life. That retirement age seems to be going back every year, and I keep looking at it, and it's in a very distant future for me. So how do we create opportunities for ourselves, and how do we create opportunities at every age and every stage so that people can engage and in the workforce and in the community in a way that brings fulfillment but also gives them that economic empowerment that they need? And so for me, Startup Weekend is a phenomenal model to do that. We ran one recently in Sydney that was a women's Startup Weekend focus. When I say we, actually other people ran it. I was a judge, so it was great. I just got to watch the 18 pitches because we had that many women there. But it gave them skills and thinking about how to approach solving a business. And what was great was we had generations from university students all the way through to people that were definitely at least 10 years older than me. I'll let you guess that. But, you know, there was this multi-generational sort of exchange happening, and there was so much richness in what people brought to the table. So figuring out how to do that, I think, and creating those opportunities for people is really phenomenal.
How can people from regional areas tap into the Google power? What tools can you give us to explore those opportunities?
There is so much out there. I'm going to send through a whole bunch of list of resources because I know there's a lot of teachers in the room tonight. So we've got some phenomenal programs available for you. And again, when I say we, I use we very liberally. Like it's we as in the collective partnership of people that I work with. So we've worked really closely with Adelaide University to create some online courses for the digital technologies curriculum from kindergarten through to year 10. And Leanne is phenomenal because she helped us get those accredited in New South Wales, so they count for your professional development hours. But we will share those with you because they're all Creative Commons licensed. They're all free. We want you to be able to get the skills and the training that you need for that. For those of you that run businesses and are thinking, I want to grow my business, we have some phenomenal resources available, both on our Google for Startups site, but also with Digital Garage, which is a program that one of the teams in Sydney runs that is about building capacity online for businesses. So again, there's lots and lots of training there about how to build an effective marketing strategy and an email campaign and put your business online and build a website, and what is search, you know, how does that even really work? It's all there to kind of build capacity in the community and in the ecosystem. So we'll share that out with you as well. The other thing I would say is there's a phenomenal amount on YouTube. YouTube has one of, you know, it's known for crazy cat videos, and I personally like the beagle videos. I own beagles, so if you ever want to get lost for several hours, just look up escaping beagles and you will be terrified. You will never buy one. You will never have a beagle because you'll be terrified of what they can do. But they're fabulous. But there's an incredible amount of educational content on there. So if you've ever wondered how to do something or how to build something, how to fix something, you just go onto YouTube. There's a video there for it. Somebody is training you in something. And I think finding that and understanding that is an incredibly rich experience to learn yourself. I'm one of those people that doesn't acquire knowledge by just reading it. I have to do it. I'm a big doer. If I do it and fail and stuff it up several thousand times, I will actually, really persevere through it to acquire that and retain that knowledge. And so I think there's a phenomenal amount of experts globally that are sharing things. You've got the best from like Harvard and MIT and Stanford and from universities across Australia. And then you've got this random people in like country towns all over the world that have discovered something amazing and they share it. And so you have the opportunity to engage in that. You also have the opportunity to share your knowledge with the world. I'm just saying, I'm putting it out there. Australians are really, 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 really bad at being tall poppies. We don't want to shout out our success. We don't want to say we're awesome. And I think it's something that culturally we have to get past, because there is an incredible amount of talent, there's an incredible amount of wisdom and an incredible amount of capacity in this country, and we need it to shine, and we need to actually figure out how to showcase that to the world. But it starts with us having the confidence and getting over our imposter syndrome to do that.
Well, thank you, Sally-Ann. I don't know how to continue with that, but I think it's a great start to the next phase, to ask questions. I'd like to ask questions to the audience. If you can think of something that you are burning to ask Sally-Ann.
So as most of you know, I exited from Renet. I had a startup business that started in Sawtell, which was one of the requirements of the business I wanted to start, was regional. I wanted to move home and start a software company, and I did. And last year I managed to exit that. So I have a question for Sally-Ann. Is that all right? Now I'm mentoring other business owners that are starting up or in business, and they always talk about the exit, and you spoke about that earlier. So what's your number one tip I can give them? I can give them my experience, but from your side, from Google's side, what's the number one tip I could pass on to them?
I think there's a couple of things. I'm always wary of when a brand new founder who's just starting their business comes to me and starts talking about exit. It's too early. If you're thinking about exiting when you're just starting, that's probably going to be a big red flag for investors and for people that want to help you out. I want to hear passion. I want to hear what the problem is that you're trying to solve and how you're going to solve it and where that's going to go. I think exits are a great thing. Exits mean a lot of different things for a lot of different people. An exit can be listing. An exit can be an acquisition. An exit can be a whole bunch of different things. But for me, it's about, when I hear a founder, it's exited, it's usually the business is actually still ongoing. And they've just gone, I've kind of lost my passion for that particular problem, and I want to go do this new one. So let me give you a classic example of my boss who retired, my boss that just retired from Google in January. And I use the word retired very loosely because he's off doing a not-for-profit now called OzOcean. And he's working and tinkering again with technology and looking at ways that he can work with researchers and others to actually help save and protect oceans and do, marine research. And so I think most entrepreneurs I know that exit never really stop. They just move to another problem that they want to solve. My advice for those who've exited would be, and I love that you're doing this, is it's one of the values too about helping others and paying it forward. Right? There's a ton of people and creativity, and I'm hearing more and more of that tonight, right? You have the DNA in your community, and it's about connecting those dots, and then I think putting fuel to the fire. So for me, investment, mentoring, all of that is fuel to the fire and hopefully helping somebody increase what they're actually doing. Does that give you enough of an answer? You want to ask me another one?
No, I totally agree. I actually had a session today and they asked the same question. I said, you need to build a business you don't want to sell.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if exit's your goal, it's not going to work. So yeah, I totally agree. So thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Okay, so my name's Nat, and this is my colleague Claire, and we drove up here from Port Macquarie, and we both teach anatomy and physiology at Charles Sturt University. And just a little bit of background, our students are regional students. They are mostly low SES, first in family and regional, and we do a lot of online teaching. And we are trying to teach a subject which is anatomy and physiology, pathophys and pharmacology to students that have probably haven't studied for 20 years, mature age, people with families, people with jobs that are really finding it hard. So we actually have a really cool idea, just saying. We think it's a pretty awesome. We think it's a good idea.
But we don't know where to start.
But we know what we want to do. We know exactly we don't really know exactly how to do it, but we know what we want. We just sort of feel like we're sort of isolated and we don't really know anyone to sort of get it going. But we know what the solution is, don't we, Claire? We have got it sorted.
We've got the passion.
We have it. We can solve this. And the thing is that you talk about impact, it's going to be at least 700 to 1,000 students per year. They're going to be trained in regional Australia, are going to stay in regional Australia, paramedics, nurses, medical imaging technicians. So it's big impact. Thank you.
I love it. A couple of things for you. In the wrap-up of what we're going to send out to everybody afterwards, there's going to be some tools in there for you that we're going to reference, some videos, some online content, some online training to sort of start thinking about how you might solve that problem and give you some methodology for that to think about it. I would encourage you to pester this man right here and have a conversation with him if you haven't already. That is actually a really wise move. And then also the other thing that I would love to do is, again, I'm gonna give first. I would love to connect you with some people that I know in Sydney through Fishburners and send an introduction there, and see if we can't get somebody that could maybe talk you through that, connect you through to Startup Weekend and things like that, and see if we can't get connected into a resource and a community and an ecosystem. There is a national ecosystem in this space that might help you sort of take that from an idea to what's the next step that we could tangibly take.
Thank you very much. My name's Sian. I also work at the council alongside Fiona. So I look after the libraries and the gallery, and your eyes just lit up then.
They did.
So when you, and my eyes light up as well when I can see the connection. So we've talked a lot about lifelong learning. So we've talked about education, teachers, and I'm just wondering, hopefully in 3 years' time we'll have a very exciting new library here and a new gallery and museum. Firstly, professional development for those professionals outside the education system, early literacy, STEM, and also post-school and tertiary. And then secondly, any top tips for Coffs Harbour? What should we be looking at?
I love libraries and galleries because I think when we talk about education, we often we immediately think of schools and that's it. And really education, when I talk about lifelong learning, is everywhere and every avenue. And so I really love the role that libraries and galleries can play in so much of connecting community with knowledge, right? Essentially that's the role, and inspiring. So the work that I talked about for teachers before, completely relevant to librarians. It would be great and foundational because there's hundreds and hundreds of resources that they reference in there around digital technologies and computer science and computational thinking and coding, and it's not scary, it's really actually easy. It really is, trust me. We've got some really good programs in there that we would love to see happening. We actually have another program that we've run at Google, we've developed ourselves called CS First, which is basically, it was designed not to be in classroom. It was designed as an after-school activity or an outside-of-school activity to teach kids computational thinking and computer science. And in Australia, because we had the digital technologies curriculum come out, we mapped it to that and kind of went, hey, let's put that into classrooms. But it would be great to get those sorts of things into libraries. So we will make sure that that's in the list that's sent out as well. The other thing is that
we're happy to be a pilot in Coffs Harbour for Google if you want.
That's awesome. Leanne can run it for you wherever she is if she's still here. So I like Leanne is the centre of all the things here. But the beautiful thing, it's scaffolded, so we can get you going without actually any help. It's super, super easy. I think the other thing that would be really phenomenal, if I could have my dream request of libraries, because that's kind of where I'm taking your question to go. I would actually love to see libraries host things like Startup Weekend and connect between problems and resources and knowledge that you have in the library, because I think there's so much activity that goes on, but I'd love people to connect in their mind when they're doing something entrepreneurial and they're doing something like that, to think of the library and think of those spaces and places and see them as a connection point between knowledge that's in everybody's head here, as well as the books and all of the other resources. So I think it's about changing what people's perception of a library is and having them come in the doors and seeing that the true power is the knowledge that's in there and the knowledge that can be shared between people as well in that space.
Thank you very much.
pleasure. I love libraries, if you can't tell. I read a lot. Libraries are often a hub resource for like low SES communities and opportunities to bring that in. So First Robotics, if you want to contact the team there, they still have grants that we gave them. That we gave them a 3 to 4 year grant program to start new FLL, FTC and FRC teams in low SES, rural and remote schools. And that includes libraries. So if you want to start a First Robotics team and target low SES community groups and bring them in, I think there's an incredible opportunity there.
Thank you, Sally. Next question was somewhere over there. Yep.
Hi, Sally. Thank you so much for coming here tonight. I actually work at Coastal Media as a digital marketing specialist. My name's Adrian. And I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about search engine optimization and just what comes to mind when you hear those words.
That it's something that we need to teach people about. And I'm not going to tonight because that's not my expertise. We do have some really phenomenal resources though in the Digital Garage, sort of online content that I mentioned before. I think one of the things that we need to get people to understand is how search works and why a business should be online and what the opportunity is. And so for me, it's not just about search engine optimization, it's actually about the whole digital landscape. And it's like, what is it that you're trying to do with your business and how can technology be an enabler and a driver of growth for you? And that can be as simple as a local business that truly is trading locally, so a service provider that is locally focused, or it can be a business that's actually trying to go global from wherever they are, because there's no reason not to be a global business from Coffs Harbour. There's absolutely none. We've already heard about I've heard about at least 5 tonight, and I'm sure there's more. I think there's a great opportunity though to grow people's capacity and understanding and skills in that, and so we've got some of those resources in the Digital Garage space, but then the other is you can go further into online training and development to kind of help you build up those skills.